everybody. My name is Miranda Law, and I'm a pharmacist from the USA. I currently work as a clinical assistant professor at the Howard University College of Pharmacy, which is located in Washington, D.C. It is my pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with all of you today regarding the FIP Nanjing Statement. As we begin discussing the Nanjing Statements, it will be crucial that we understand what the Nanjing Statements are. For those of you who may have never seen or heard of these statements before, please find a copy of them available for you to download from the FIP.org website. I highly encourage you to read through them and know what the document contains. In general, the Nanjing Statements on Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences Education is a document published by FIP that describes what pharmacists around the world believe the future of pharmacy education should look like. Ideally, advancing pharmacy education to achieve each of the Nanjing Statements will be able to enhance professional standards for pharmacists worldwide. To create this document, FIP first developed a draft version of the statements through an appointed committee. Afterwards, it went through 3 validation phases. Phase 1 included public consultation, where over 3,200 comments were received from 22 countries and territories. The second validation phase was conducted at the Nanjing Conference, where 37 delegations from 36 countries were able to comment and discuss these statements, coming to a consensus on what they should be. The last validation phase was held online with country delegations and focused on 6 statements that required further discussion after the Nanjing Conference. These validation phases are important because it shows the world that these statements were developed with the input of pharmacists from all over the globe and that they truly reflect what pharmacists want pharmacy education to strive towards globally. The final Nanjing Statements consist of 67 statements that are organized into 8 different clusters. Now that you know a little bit about what the statements are, it is important for you to understand why these statements are valuable. Currently, pharmacy education is very different around the world, and depending on what country you're from, you could be earning a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctorate degree in pharmacy. In some instances, in some places, you may even be able to select between a few different pharmacy degree options. Because pharmacy education varies around the world, it is very possible that the training pharmacists are receiving across the globe is different, and that the pharmacists that graduate in Europe, for example, may practice very differently from the pharmacist that was trained from Southeast Asia. By creating a global standard and vision for pharmacy education, schools, regardless of their country or location, can work towards advancing these statements and ensuring that all graduating pharmacists are receiving pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences education that is valued across the world. In this way, new graduates will have the skills to meet both local needs in their country as well as needs in other parts of the world. Having discussed the Nanjing Statements and their importance, we're going to now also discuss how the Nanjing Statements are currently organized. As I mentioned earlier, the statements are grouped into 8 clusters, and these clusters include 1. A shared global vision, 2. A professional skills mix, 3. Recruitment of students, 4. Foundation training and leadership, 5. Experiential education, 6. Resources and academic staff, 7. Quality assurance, and 8. Continuing professional education. Each of these clusters has its own definition. For example, Cluster 1, a shared global vision, is described as a shared global vision that promotes workforce development in the context of pharmaceutical education and training. It should help professional leadership bodies, educators, and regulators in developing a national or regional vision based on priorities and resources of that country or region. After the cluster definition, each cluster has a number of associated statements. For example, the Shared Global Vision cluster includes statements that address workforce development, foundations for education and training, competencies that should be taught, and expectations for scholarly activity from academic staff. I encourage all of you to take some time and read through each of these clusters and its associated statements. As students or new graduates, it is important to know what the pharmacy profession is envisioning for education advancement, and we will talk a little bit more about why that is in the next few slides. When the Nanjing statements were created, their purpose was to provide a way for educational institutions to conduct self-assessment and monitoring, to identify areas in the curriculum where there may be gaps or could use improvement, to be used as a strategic planning tool for future directions of that school, and in general, to be used to improve the education process for each institution, regionally or nationally. And important to note, the intent was that these statements could be used at every level, everywhere from an individual school to a region or a nation. Since the Nanjing statements were published, FIP and other pharmacists have been thinking about ways to improve how the Nanjing statements can be used. A number of projects are currently being worked on. And research is focused on evaluating and developing ways that schools or institutions can easily utilize the Nanjing statements for self-assessment and monitoring. One of these projects is one that I am currently working on. So when you read the Nanjing statements, each cluster and its associated statements include many concepts and ideas. So in order to help institutions better utilize the Nanjing statements as an evaluation tool, I am currently working with FIP on developing a self-assessment tool whereby school administrators and academic staff can complete the self-assessment tool and receive a report on how their institution currently is meeting each of the Nanjing statements. This tool, which we are working on right now, will hopefully provide guidance on how the Nanjing statements can be used for self-monitoring and assessment. As students and new graduates, we always ask, why is it important to be aware of what the Nanjing statements are and how they can be used? Isn't this something that is normally given to faculty or somebody that is at an administrative or leadership level? Not necessarily, and there are a lot of reasons why you as a student or new graduate should be aware of the Nanjing statements. So first, as a new or future pharmacist, it's important to understand that pharmacy education shapes the role and advancement of what pharmacists can do. As you progress through the curriculum, what and how you are being taught influences what you are able to do when you graduate. It is important to know what global expectations are in education so that you can also understand what the expectations for practicing pharmacists are, and thereby what is going to be expected of you as you enter your career. Secondly, and very importantly, knowing what these statements are about empowers you to have a voice in your own education, which is so important. If you read a statement within the Nanjing statements and feel that perhaps your school could be doing something different or could be doing something more to advance in this particular area, now is the time for you as a student to voice your opinion and shape what kind of an education you are able to get. Third, and also very important, is that there is still a lot to be learned about how these Nanjing statements can be used and how impactful that they can be. As students, you can choose to get involved in research that furthers the knowledge around the use of the Nanjing statements. I have actually already spoken to some eager students who want to do more with these statements. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. It is a great learning opportunity for you to be a part of or even initiate a research project. Doing so requires you to know and understand the content of these statements. So it's very important that the first thing you do is to take some time to read them. I'm really happy to answer any questions you may have on these statements. So I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen.